you.
Oh, I wish you were all here. Welcome back, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Monsieur and Madame, my next guest is Pete Townshend. Thank you for being here, Pete. You've been over there sitting in with the band all night. I couldn't even read the prompter. I didn't hear a word Jonathan Carl said. I've just been waiting to get you over here. Have you having a good time with Louis and the band?
Oh, wow, yeah, they're great. They're great. You know, they're so great. Yeah, really great.
You guys sound incredible.
When I arrived, I thought I was going to have to teach them some stuff, and they taught me how to do it.
Well, you've just finished up the Who's farewell tour
Yep.
in North America with Roger Daltrey.
Yeah.
Ended in Palm Springs on October 1st. Now, farewell tours tend to be farewell, but I attended one of your earlier farewell tours. I believe in '85 or something, and I think that was your second farewell tour, because you also had a farewell tour in '82, which ended in Montreal.
No, let me correct you.
Yes?
In '82, I left The Who.
Oh, it was your farewell.
It was my farewell. In '89, I pleaded to come back to The Who because I was broke. And we did a 25th anniversary tour. This time, the farewell tour is genuine. We are going to end it after we've done as many shows as Elton John. He did...
Double tour?
He did 330.
Yes.
We've done 22.
All right.
So we just have another 308 to do.
Fantastic.
And then we'll be gone. For good.
Do you enjoy touring?
No. But I really enjoyed this last tour. It was great. I decided I was going to try to make Roger happy, which isn't easy. Not because he's a nasty guy or anything, but he sings, and he sings the way he sings, and his whole body and life goes into it. And I thought, you know, I must forget about myself and just do this for him. It could be the last thing we ever do together. And it worked. He did have 2 days off when he got sick, but I loved it because I got him laughing and got him smiling, and we were hugging each other and telling each other we loved each other, and that's not something that has happened up until now. So it was a great tour for me.
Now, your first gig in the States was back in 1967.
That's
I understand.
correct,
It was
yeah.
only a few blocks from here. It was at 58th and 3rd. You were 21 years old. This is basically the look of you guys back there. There you go.
Too much hair.
Yes. Well, he's got amazing...
Get a haircut.
You and Keith Moon look like you're from a Jane Austen novel. And these guys look like they came to visit you in a time machine. You're slightly different.
You know what's interesting about '67? It was the heyday of the hippie scene in New York. We came, and in Central Park there were all these hippies running around on acid.
Yeah.
We were just getting used to the fact that we were home, you know, with our Irish ancestors and our Jewish ancestors and our Islamic ancestors and all of those guys. You know, the mixed races and the mixed place of the excitement of New York, discovering this place that was just such a great city. And New York has been, yeah, no, it is. And you know, the hippie thing for us didn't really fit in very well. The Cream, Eric Clapton's band then at the time, they were on the same bill. We were doing 4 to 5 shows a day.
4 to 5 shows a day?
And I was smashing a guitar at every show. So,
and was that in the contract that you had to?
No. I was just making sure I left my mark. And I had to glue them together between shows. No, I did. I used this special glue called Cascamite. It's a powdered glue, and I managed to string them back together. I got very good at putting guitars together. Anyway, my point is that New York has given me everything. It has given me everything that I've ever needed, ever wanted, and it's happening now. You know, we're bringing this Quadrophenia ballet to New York, and we're sold out.
Yes.
You know, it's so great.
So here's Quadrophenia. Quadrophenia, the Who's 1973 rock opera, now a rock ballet, as you said. There you go.
A rock ballet.
Yeah, rock ballet.
I'm not in it. I'm not.
Yeah, that proves it. That proves they're dancing, in case you were doubting us. It was also a film in 1979. Why do you keep reimagining it?
You know, I don't reimagine it. It comes around. It's a bit like, you know, this sounds incredibly pretentious, but then I am pretentious. It's like Romeo and Juliet. It is a perennial story. It's just a story about a young guy who falls in love with a girl. That's it. And in Quadrophenia, you have this kid who can't get the girl. He's got a couple of friends, but he feels disconnected. He feels that he doesn't belong. He goes to a psychotherapist. He goes to a preacher. He talks to his mom. He talks to his dad. He talks to the ace face, the king mod, the head of the gang, you know, in his gang. And nothing works for him. And he ends up on a rock by the sea praying. And that's where the song Love Rain on Me came from. And Love Rain on Me is one of the best things I've ever written. And it's about that. It's about that point where, you know, the Quadrophenia is about young men, really. It's about, and I don't want to do a Jordan Peterson here, but I do weep for young men still, because we are still struggling, we young men.
Yes. Yeah. What do you think?
You know what I mean. You know,
I do know what you mean. Especially there's a lot of talk about the loneliness, the epidemic of male loneliness.
Yeah.
Well, if you could give some advice to young men right now, what would you say to make their lives better?
I would say, you know, speak up. Listen and speak up. Try to be heard. Because I think one of the things that happens to us as young men, particularly in the States, it's not quite so heavy in the UK, but is sport. You know, I know that you're not a big sport guy. I'm not a big sport guy. That's what they told me. You're not a big sport guy.
I play some hacky sack.
Oh. Anyway, yeah, you know, in college and in the various grades, you're taught to be a great sportsman.
Sure.
And sport is about pain. You know, it's about doing well, winning.
And aggression.
Yeah, aggression and all that stuff. And when you get out into the world as a normal guy, it's very difficult to get past that kind of philosophy that we're all drummed into us. And if we're not into sport, we're probably in a gang, and the gang has a leader, and the gang's trying to make a living out of us, getting us to sell drugs on the streets. You know, it's a strange world that kids live in, boys live in. And I'm not saying that girls have it better. I don't know that because I'm not a girl. But I think that the thing that The Who have always done is speak to a male audience. We have, from the very, very beginning. I remember when I wrote The Who's first hit, Can't Explain, after the show, a bunch of boys and one girl, 5 boys and one girl came back and said, this is what we need. And I said, what do you mean? The song's about a guy who can't explain that he's in love with this girl. And I said, that's it. We can't explain. We don't have the language. So I set myself up as a spokesman for that crowd, you know. And you know what's interesting today, sorry to interrupt, but what's interesting today is that in pop music, all of the great voices are female. You know, some of the new great voices, they're female. And they have this incredible range, maybe 3 octaves. Most men singers have 2 octaves at best, have this incredible, so the melodies are better, the gymnastics and the vocals are better, and that's a great thing. But you know, when you look at what Taylor Swift is doing, she's talking about her conquests some of the time. Some of the time she's talking about what she's sick of with her conquest. She's got a great guy now, I think. He looks like a good guy.
Large.
Yeah, he's big
Very
guy.
large, yes.
I'm not going to knock him. I'm not going to.
No.
He's a good guy.
Exactly.
But the fact is that music is now in a completely different place. And so bringing the ballet, the boys in the ballet, what's so interesting is they're young men, they're in their 20s. They really identify with the story, you know, about a young kid having a couple of hard days, you know.
Well, I mean, it wasn't your first rock opera. Tommy was your first rock opera, and It's another young man, it's a different type of isolation, but another young man in isolation. How did it come about that you actually wrote a rock opera at all?
You know, The Who's manager was a gay guy called Kit Lambert, one of our two managers, and his dad was Constant Lambert, who created the Royal Ballet at Covent Garden. And he had a box in Covent Garden. And so if I was hanging out in Soho with nothing to do, I would go in and I would sit in his box, order some champagne and watch some opera, watch some ballet. And one day, my friend and I, Ray Tolliday and I, decided to write a silly opera for Kit Lambert's birthday. And it was called Gratis Amatis, which is Latin for free love. And we did this silly opera. And Kit Lambert was very pleased to get his birthday present. And after Ray had gone home, he said to me, Pete, this opera thing is really good. You should do one. So I wrote a thing called the mini opera. It was called A Quick One While He's Away. We played it on the Rolling Stones Rock and Roll Circus, the video of that. You can look that up, and you can Google that. It's on YouTube. It's really good. We apparently outplayed the Stones, so that was... And so I just carried this idea around for a while. I tried to write an opera about Israel and China. It was called Rael, and that was a flop. I didn't manage to get that one away. But
why Israel and China together?
I'd just been to Israel, and it was just before the Six-Day War, yeah. And there was tremendous tension, and China was just on the rise. They, with manufacturing. I knew that they were going to big, and I knew that they would be a threat. This is in 1967. So I started to write this piece called Rael. I'm going really off topic here. With Tommy, I wanted to write a story about a young man's spiritual journey. So that was that, yeah.
And what did he think? What did he think when you came back with that as your opera?
The whole thing about Tommy really is that I didn't realize that it was probably really autobiographical. My childhood was, most of the time, was fabulous. My dad was in a band. He's a sax player and a clarinetist in a dance band. And I grew up with that. But my mum wanted to be a singer. And when I was 4 years old, I had to go to school. And she didn't want to be bothered with me, so she sent me to stay with her mother, who was clinically insane, absolutely insane. I mean, seriously insane. And my grandmother took me, it's all in my autobiography if you want to buy a copy. And it's not good. I spent 2 years with this woman. She didn't personally sexually abuse me, but some happened, without question. She walked around the neighborhood naked. Anyway, in the end, one of her neighbors called my dad and said, you've got to come and get Pete out of here. And I'd been at school there. I was happy at school, but my grandmother never let me go out. She never let me do anything. She used to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and take these long walks to go and meet US airmen and, have sex with them in cars and stuff. It was really bizarre. So I finally went home. My mum and dad had been separated for a while. They got back together. For me, I didn't care whether they loved each other or not. I was just glad that they were together for me. I got back to following my dad's band, back to, listening to Ella Fitzgerald and Frank Sinatra and all that great stuff that he was playing. And I didn't realize until Tommy came to Broadway in '93, and I did 200 interviews about Tommy that year, 200 interviews about Tommy. And about halfway through one of them, I realized, oh my God, this is me. This is me, subject to bullying, subject to abuse, subject to parental mismanagement. I wouldn't call it abuse, but they screwed up. They were young kids, my parents. After the war, everybody got married and had kids, whether they wanted to or not. It was just, it was the end of the war, let's have a family. So Tommy, for me, was autobiographical, and of course ends with the fact that around the time that The Who were getting famous, I decided I was going to go on a spiritual journey. And so in a sense, all of the stuff was woven together in 1969, 68, when I was writing Tommy. I didn't realize that so much of it was about me. Interestingly enough, Quadrophenia is not in any sense about me. I don't think I had that kind of childhood. I don't think I was in a gang when I was 4.5, but not when I was 16 or 17.
Your spiritual journey, I assume, or not assume, but I would imagine that the music itself is a spiritual journey as well. Was there a spiritual journey? What was the spiritual journey you needed to take outside of the work that you were doing with your music?
You know, The Who were a gang. We were a school, you know, I was at school, I was 16 years old, I was doing art classes in the summer, doing the 8th grade or whatever you call them at 16, I don't know what the grades are, but I was doing the exams, the final exams. And this guy, Roger Daltrey, who was the school bully, came in. He'd been thrown out the year before. He came back. He's a year older than me. Came back, came up to me in the corridor, said, I hear you play the guitar. And I said, yeah. And he said, do you want to be in my band? And I said, yeah. And I thought, I've got protection. And I was still being an art student in the summer, went to his house, we put the band together. John Entwistle, the bass player of The Who, was already in his band, and we started to work, but I kept it secret. I didn't tell my smarty-farty art school friends I was in this band. Until one day there was this college dance thing, and we were hired to do the band, and all these fabulous-looking hippie art school girls were pretending to be Beatles fans and were screaming at me, and I thought, this is great, you know. And then it began, really, in a sense, the fact that the first record, and I thought of myself as a creative. I wanted to be a painter or sculptor or something, and the band would last a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months. And that's why when I accidentally smashed my first guitar, I didn't care. I thought, well, we'll be gone in 2 months. And I'll just buy another one and borrow some money from my dad and buy another one. And we had this hit record, Can't Explain. And I was driving my mum's little yellow van back to Ealing, where we lived in West London, and I heard it on the radio, and that was it. I thought, wow, I'm communicating, and I have an audience. I have these kids, from Shepherd's Bush, mainly Irish boys, but a few Jewish kids as well, and one Somali boy. There were some Somali kids that had just come in from Somalia. And they were what we call mods. They wore these kind of neat suits like I'm wearing now. And
mods or rockers?
Yeah, mods, yeah. And they were committed to what I was writing. And then I wrote My Generation, which was just huge. It spoke of the thank you. So I had an audience, and then, in a sense, what happened was it's not that I left art behind, and not that I suddenly became sort of super spiritual or anything, but there was magic happening, and I didn't know what it was. I just didn't know what the magic was, and it's taken me a long time. I'm 80 years old now, and I think, this is probably the best time in my life because I sort of have a general idea of what's happening.
I'm happy for you. I'm looking forward to it myself. Okay, we'll put this whole thing up online. We're over the time for broadcast.
Gotcha.
We'll just put the whole thing up online, and more people will watch online. They're watching on the show, so everything's going to be great. But so that means I get to ask you some more questions because I don't get to talk to Pete Townshend every day. Is it true that you have unheard music in the vault ready to go?
Yeah, I've got about 350, 450 pieces of music. Now, a lot of it is probably terrible.
Have you listened to all of it?
I've managed to wade through about half of it. What's interesting is...
You want me to help you listen to the rest of it?
You could.
Because I'll have some free time come June.
I don't know what to do with it. I don't know what to do with it because, I'm also quite interested in AI. I'm quite interested in getting some of the songs that didn't quite work because I didn't get them right first time round and put them up onto Suno or something, some AI music machine, and seeing what it can make of it. It might be some hits.
There's a country music song that's doing very well right now. All by robots. You should get into that game. Pete Townshend, please name your top 5 Pete Townshend songs.
I think the top is Love Rain on Me.
Somebody write these down. Love Rain on Me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Behind Blue Eyes.
I'm with you.
I really love Let My Love Open the Door. I love Barbara O'Reilly. I think that's now got 1.5 billion streams on Spotify. Yeah.
That's 4. Bring it home.
5. And of course, you know, the one that is most applicable to the modern world, which is that our leaders are never any good. And when people try to tell us who to vote for, we always don't feel quite right about that. So I wrote this song called Won't Get Fooled Again. And it was, you know, as Bob Dylan said, don't follow parking meters, don't follow leaders, you know, follow parking meters. It's a kind of a comment on the fact that the people that we put in power always seem to end up breaking their promises. And that's not directed at anybody now, today, but just everybody there's ever been. Politicians promise stuff that they sort of know, they have their fingers crossed behind them. They know that they can't deliver some of the stuff that they promise. And I was being bullied in 72 by a bunch of hippies who said, you know, Pete, the revolution is coming and you've got to get behind it. So I wrote Won't Get Fooled Again for a project called Lifehouse, which was, no, I won't write, you know, I won't be part of your revolution. I think the revolution, if it comes, won't need me to write for it.
Pete, thanks so much for being here. Such a pleasure. Quadrophenia, a rock ballet, is at New York City Center this Friday through Sunday. Pete Townshend, everybody. We'll be right back.